We had a news story come out this week of a Xiaomi that had caught fire. This driver could not exit his car simply because the car had electric doors. In the middle of fighting for his life, the driver was trying to do IT support on himself. For the longest time, we've known that Apple was and still is the undisputed king of branding. Honor, Oppo and Vivo have done announcements for the new devices, and surprise, surprise, they all have a varying degree of the liquid glass effect that was seen from Apple. Even if Apple does something that we all agree probably isn't quite as good, we still know that the industry is going to march in lockstep. Welcome to this solo episode of the Admin Access Show. Since raising $4.9 million, Dominic has not been seen in this office for about a month now.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way. I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
So it's just me and the 224 subscribers. Thank you all for joining. We have a packed show. We have a few stories we want to catch up on. I have a few companies, not people, mostly organizations that I need to, grind my gears. And with that, let's get started. We'll start this first story. Since Dominic is not here, I'll take the liberties to not talk about AI or anything that, you guys are used to. This is my show tonight, and so I want to talk about the one industry that's most dearest to me, and that's cars. We had a news story come out this week of a Xiaomi that had caught fire. That's nothing new in the realm of electric cars. I mean, we're literally just working with C4s underneath our chairs, but hey. But what caught my eye, what made it quite interesting to me, on top of being tragic, is the fact that this driver could not exit his car simply because the car had electric doors. And so in the middle of fighting for his life, the driver was trying to do IT support on himself just to get out of his car. And it sounds so obviously stupid that we shouldn't have car doors be made of have electric components. They need to be manual. And to be fair, most cars have a kind of a manual release that usually isn't quite obvious, simply to protect the aesthetic of the vehicle. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I deem to be optimistic hubris. And the idea behind this is that we often tend to extrapolate small wins or breakout successes in one area and then assume that it applies to every other aspect of our endeavors. And what I mean by that is that over the past, 10 years or more, the first time I heard about a Tesla was I think around 2013. There was clearly a great breakthrough that the electric industry had found in how they packaged or how they made electric cars, a thing, which was something that people have been trying for years to get to, and Tesla had kind of broken that ground. However, the problem that I had is that it wasn't enough to just have an electric car. We had to start thinking about how can we go beyond the things that we know to be normal, the things that we know work, in essence trying to chase this optimism, this futurism, with regards to how it's like the creators of this vehicle said, hey, how can we rethink every single aspect of the car, which normally wouldn't be bad. However, I see that as being part of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And the theory behind this is something that I remember reading about in one of Nassim Taleb's book, probably Anti-Fragile, and it's the aspect of things being Lindy. What does it mean to be Lindy? The whole concept of things being Lindy is the idea that time is the true arbiter, is the true judge of things that work and things that don't. And so it's very likely that if something has lasted for quite a long time, it's very likely to last even longer. In fact, it's used as a prediction model where if you do not know anything about the nature that rules something, let me give an example. We know that human beings tend to live have a lifespan of say 100 years. And so if someone has lived for 40 years, you can say optimistically they have maybe another 60 at best, but they definitely don't have 70. But there are many areas in life where we do not truly know how to make a projection about the future. And so in the absence of such knowledge, the Lindy principle tends to be one of the best estimates of how long something will last. And it simply states that, hey, if you want to know how long something has, the shelf life of something, how many years another a table has, just ask how many years has it been. If something has survived for 10 years, just give it another 10 years. Again, in the absence of knowing the true mechanics of how something works. And it's meant to give us a sense of humility about the world. Instead of trying to reinvent everything and assuming that, hey, we have carte blanche to just change doors. The other thing that really gripes me is the fact that now to change the climate, to open the glove box, you have to go through screens. We should instead take a much more humble approach to how we go about innovating, and knowing that just because you found one breakout success, it's much more likely that most of the other things that we come out will tend not to be Lindy, will tend not to outlast time. And I hope this is something that we can see it in, we can be able to implement or have, at least in the car industry. That's the one place where things really grind my gears, and especially when I see a lot of these really ugly cars trying to prove a point that, hey, look at me, I'm ugly, that means I have to be futuristic, and understand that actually it's just okay to have an electric car that looks normal. Now, for our second story, I'd like to take us to AWS and the recent outage that they had encountered. Sometime this week, we had a number of websites go down, and these are not just small websites. We're talking about the Reddits, the Netflixes of the world, and all this was because of a DNS issue that had come up in one of the regions. The way these cloud providers are structured is that they'll have different regions in different areas so that they can be as physically close to their customers as possible. At the end of the day, even though this is still software, it still has to travel through physical medium to get to our devices. And what's interesting about it, or why I think this was something that was important to me, is the fact that it only served to underscore how much of a fragile ecosystem we are in. When you think about AWS, it's probably something that when you ask someone across the street what is AWS, most people will not be able to give an answer. They will not have a clue what it's about. And yet, a third of the world's internet runs and is serviced by this one organization. And we're talking to the tune of 2,500 plus companies rely on this website, on this service provider. So much of our content, think of Netflix, think of a lot of the social media that we share, images, a lot of the websites that we use. If you're storing images somewhere, they're probably going to some AWS bucket. And yet it's something that is so obscured, so abstracted from day-to-day use, that it can tend to put us in a very tricky position, as we've seen this week. And it also serves to show us the nature of software. Unlike most businesses that are brick and mortar, they tend to run along the rules of the physical realm. What do I mean by this? For me to get a phone, for me to buy this mic, it has to be built somewhere. It has to be shipped overseas, probably because it's probably built in China. It has to be stored in some store somewhere so that when I make that purchase online or when I buy it, it can come to me. There are physical limitations that tend to even out the playing field when it comes to providers, in the sense that a company like Coca-Cola is probably really big, and yet in every small market there's likely a chance for a very small player to get a lot of market share. We have these regional, that's where the term of regional companies or regional players tend to be. However, this is not the case in software. Software works on a very different model, in the sense that for Amazon or for AWS, getting a customer from Nigeria and getting a customer from Australia makes no difference to them. It's the same thing. And there are cascading effects to this. And in the sense that it tends to become a winner takes all market. We describe it as a fat tail curve, where you have you have 3 or so really big players, and then a long list of very small players who on their own will never be able to quite make or take. They can never take a chunk out of the dominance of the top players, and this is a challenge because as people in software, it's easy to think that hey, all we need to do is to just build a better product, or we need to offer better incentives to get our customers. But it's a much bigger challenge. It's a blessing and a curse. Getting customers is easy. However, getting customers from the largest player is not. And I hope those who are building businesses can have that in mind, that typically it's much more easier for the larger company to get, or rather, you do not truly understand how easy it is for the larger companies to keep consolidating market share. And so it is important that as you build your businesses, you keep working on moats, you keep innovating in such a way that you can never truly be outcompeted. Apple this week announced the new M5 chip. It is said to be, their benchmarks say that they claim it is 50% faster than the M4, especially in multi-threaded and in GPU performance. And it will be coming out in the next version of MacBook Pros, though the Max version of this chip has yet to be announced. It's quite interesting, and it's not something that at all that we had not expected from Apple. And yet, what I found interesting about the story isn't so much the new processor or what they've come up with, but more so how the industry is reacting to Apple. For the longest time, we've known that Apple was and still is the undisputed king of branding, and they set the standard when it comes to what we define as classy, what we define as groundbreaking. And it's no exception, or it's no surprise to hear that their design system, Liquid Glass, which most of the people who had seen it said that it wasn't quite as good or wasn't as well received, and in fact they had to do a bit of walking back and a bit of tweaking to make the Liquid Glass a bit more tenable, a bit more palatable with its customers. Now we are seeing a lot of the Android side take up from Apple. So Honor, Oppo, and Vivo have done announcements for the new devices. And what's interesting isn't so much the new devices, but rather the design that they tend to show. And surprise, or rather as a surprise to no one, they all have a varying degree of the liquid glass effect that was seen from Apple. They all have, that kind of, smooth glass and, transparent surfaces, which, doesn't look bad, but I think we tend to miss the forest for the trees here. Someone getting, especially nowadays with how expensive or costly devices tend to be and how there isn't a lot of upgrades from the next cycle, people are choosing smartphones or are choosing a particular device because of how different it is. And I just feel a bit sad on the inside to know that even if Apple does something that we all agree probably isn't quite as good, we still know that the industry is going to march in lockstep with their design system. And I really wish, even Samsung, with all their chest thumping and how much they pride themselves on being the Apple's biggest competitor, they also could not help to acquiesce to that same kind of design standard. Well, though not as much as the other companies and not as much as the Vivos and Oppos of the world, they still show that though they want to beat Apple and cover their own thing, they're still unable to break out of the perception that whatever Apple or the trendsetter has set in the market is the standard. And there's one place in particular that it really grinds my gears, because I've seen everyone copy Apple, and yet they copied the style, but not the excellence or the quality part of it. And by this, I'm talking about the AirPods. I recently took my wife's Oraimo earbuds, and there's something that was so uncanny, something that just filled me up with nothing but unfiltered rage about it.
I've contained my rage for as long as possible, but I shall unleash my fury upon you like the crashing of 1,000 waves! Begone, vile man! Begone from me!
Because the AirPods have no buttons. And it sounds so stupid, it sounds so trivial. And yet when every time I have to adjust the fit on my earphones, I have to go back to my phone just to hit play again, because it's always pausing. And it just makes you wonder, how much do we give up with regards to individuality, and even forget individuality? How much do we give up in pure UX and in pure usability while in chase of a trend? And so we have all these other companies, and I say this also because that I had some Oppo earbuds before that had that same kind of plague, because I couldn't go training with them, simply because anytime I adjust everything, it has to go to the next track, has to adjust the volume, has to change to, I don't know, game mode or theater mode, just a lot of nonsense. And yet we've given up pure and basic UX just to chase a trend. I really wish a lot of these companies did, had a spine, or had the belief in themselves that what they did was good enough. But I guess we'll probably just have to wait and see. We can only hope that they can get there eventually. On to product reviews. And if you give me 400 shillings and a bit of your time, I'll help you manage your notifications. The last time we talked with Dom about products, we had talked about how we go about managing notifications, and that was the whole bane of our existence. It's the one thing that makes our phones unmanageable. You don't want to turn off all notifications because they're important, and yet at the same time, there's no in-between where you can just have the notifications you need at the time that you need and in a timely manner. And often, like as is the case for me, I tend to get pretty overwhelmed. And so I started looking around, and I ran into this app called Buzzkill. And off the bat, it is a paid app. It is 400 shillings, which, I mean, if you don't pay for it, that's fair. But I will say it's really helped me. Now, the problem with a lot of these notification apps is that they have so many toggles, so many tweaks you have to make. And that honestly just, even for me, kind of turned me off at the beginning, because I was like, I don't want to have to go manage every single app. I could just turn everything off. So instead I found 3 rules that tend to work perfectly. And the way I'd categorize it is kind of like a janitor service for your notifications. So this is how I do it. I have 3 categories: the 30-minute, 2-hour, and 4-hour category of apps. I put every app into that kind of a category. And the idea is that for most of the apps, that notification should not stay on my panel for more than 30 minutes. So whenever I get a notification for sports, Arsenal is playing, this is the scoreline, that's good. I'm okay receiving that notification. But 30 minutes in, just get out. I do not need your services. There are apps which I'd probably want them to be a bit more long-lived, though not that important. Say, for example, if I take a look at an app like, for example, mail or messages, especially like me, or, missed calls, once I've seen them, within an hour or so, I'll probably have, worked on it or responded to that notification one or the other, or like plan to do it later on. So for those kind of notifications, I tend to give them a 2-hour window. So in 2 hours, I need this notification gone. And it also acts as a catalyst to make me act, because I know that if I don't work on this, then, this notification could be gone and I could forget about it. And then the final category that I have is the 4-hour window. Now, the 4-hour window applies to every single app. I do not care what it is. I do not care what the content was. After 4 hours, whatever notification came in must go out. And this way, I'm always having a small set of notifications that feel manageable to some extent. Now, you can tweak the time. You can tweak, you can probably add another batch of apps, or another window for apps that you want the notification to last a bit longer. But I've really found that the 30-minute, 2-hour, and 4-hour window tends to work really well, so that at any time I can still receive notifications from all the apps that I want, but I know that there's always someone or something in the background just doing these cleanup services. So it allows me to now turn on notifications for apps that, for example, WhatsApp group messages. I can now receive them in peace and yet know that they're not going to be bothering me, another 2 days down the line. And so if you'd like to check it out, please take a look at Buzzkill. I promise it's worth the time. And if you want to be more, want to go deeper into how you manage your apps, for example, I have a rule that just says, hey, if I receive anything that says Jira, just dismiss immediately. I have no patience for that application, or emails tied to that application. Just get out. Or another rule that I use as well is that for WhatsApp, there's an option to have it batch notification so that you don't get, every minute a notification. In my case, I've batched it every 15 minutes. So as long as it's coming from WhatsApp, it's going to have a cooldown period. This way it feels more manageable. So please check it out. The UI is easy to use. I like that design because they have, it's more natural language, no buttons, anything. So it just says, when I get a notification from WhatsApp that contains anything, then batch immediately or dismiss it immediately. And yeah, please check it out. Buzzkill, it's a great app. If you've stuck around for this solo episode of this solo admin, first off, congratulations. I know it was very difficult. I feel your pain. But please hit like, subscribe. Let me know what you got wrong. Let me know if, this format doesn't work. Perhaps it should be 2 admins. Perhaps Dominic should run this show. But nonetheless, I thank you all for getting us to 224 subscribers. Last time we asked for 213 and you guys delivered. Now I'm just going to ask for 250. Like I said, I'm not greedy. I'll take whatever subscribers we'll get. But thank you. Do let us know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you in the next episode.